Dylan Redwine, a 13-year-old boy, had been forced to visit his father, Mark Redwine. Unfortunately, this had ended up costing his life. This is the disturbing story of Dylan and Mark Redwine. Dylan was often said to be a ray of sunshine, lighting up even the darkest depths. He was described to be an outgoing, friendly, and funny boy who had brought smiles to anyone who entered his presence. With his infectious laughter and boundless enthusiasm, he had grown up in southwest Colorado with his brother, Corey, and his parents, Elaine Hatfield and Mark Redwine. Dylan had always loved being a prankster. Everyone found him hilarious, except his father. Mark caused a dark cloud over Dylan's sunshine, constantly arguing with his wife and causing much trouble overall, whilst easily losing his temper. Eventually, this had resulted in the couple filing for a divorce. Mark moved to the outskirts of Durango, while Dylan, Corey, and Elaine decided to start a new life in Colorado Springs. After some time, Elaine had eventually met a new partner, who proved to be a great role model for her children. On November 18, Dylan flew to Durango for Thanksgiving at Mark's cabin. It was a trip he was forced upon. Unfortunately, this trip had ended up claiming his life. A year prior, he and his brother had flown out to Mark's cabin and had seen a side of him that haunts them till this day. I will get to that later on the video. The night before Dylan had gone to fly out, he had a sleepover with his close friend. This friend had noticed that Dylan wasn't his usual happy self. His friend recalled he really didn't want to go. I could see the fear in his eyes. However, his personal feelings were not taken into account, as a judge granted Mark visitation rights. The brother, Corey, had also been asked to visit, but he was 19 years old and refused. These pictures show security footage of Dylan in the airport. It's unsettling knowing that these were taken right before his death. These photos are the last photos taken of Dylan alive. Upon arriving at the cabin, Dylan had asked Mark if he could go out to see his friend, but he was denied and was forced to spend the night at Mark's cabin. Dylan had made arrangements with his friend to meet at 6:30 in the morning. His friend sent a message asking where he was. He didn't receive a message back. Soon after, Dylan had been reported missing. Mark claimed that when he had left the house early in the morning to run errands, he had left Dylan sleeping in the house. But when he came back, there were no signs of him. A thorough search and rescue effort showed no signs of Dylan anywhere. Weirdly enough, Mark had refused to join the search that day and decided to go to bed instead. In the subsequent months, Mark had appeared multiple times on TV to answer questions about the disappearance of Dylan, professing that he was willing to do anything to find his son. He had even announced publicly that the police were free to search his cabin. They took his word on that and began searching his cabin. Not surprisingly, they found a few drops of Dylan's blood on the living room, but Mark had an alibi. He said it came from a football injury. It sounded reasonable, but detectives decided to make him take a polygraph test just to be sure. He failed. Specifically, he failed on the question, "Do you know where Dylan is?" He was immediately caught for lying. However, polygraph tests were only 80 to 90% accurate, so investigators were forced to let him go. After some time, Elaine and Mark had both appeared in the Dr. Phil show together. Elaine was accusing Mark of the disappearance and believed that Mark knew more about Dylan's whereabouts than he was letting on.
You need to bring him home. And please, I hope you didn't hurt him. I hope you did not hurt him. Because I really don't trust you, and I really have a concern that you hurt him, and his bones are out there just laying, and you don't even care. You don't.
While Mark was putting the blame on Elaine, saying that the reason Dylan went missing is because Dylan wasn't happy living with her. Corey, the brother, had also appeared on the show and outright accused his father of killing Dylan. The search had continued for months, with very little evidence or traces. But finally, on June 25, 2013, searchers found partial remains in an area 8 miles from Mark's cabin. In November 2015, the other remains of Dylan had been found about 2 miles from the first partial remains. Examination revealed that Dylan had lost his life after getting hit with a blunt object on the skull. Finally, at once, there was confirmation that Dylan was a victim of a homicide. After a more thorough search at Mark's house, they were able to find more traces of blood and more of Dylan's remains on the back of Mark's pickup. Eventually, Mark had been put into custody and had been put into trial. Mark's reasoning for killing Dylan was even more shocking. A year prior, when spending time in Mark's cabin, the two boys had stumbled upon disturbing pictures of their father. The pictures show Mark dressed up in female clothing, wearing makeup, and has feces all over his face. The other photos show Mark eating feces off a diaper, and eventually wearing that exact same diaper. Upon stumbling on these pictures, Corey had taken a quick picture of the images and had used them against his father when they got into a heated argument. Soon after realizing that Dylan had copies of those photos, he decided to take his anger out on Dylan and hit him on the head. After disposing of the body, he had gone to report Dylan missing. Dylan should have gotten the choice to not visit his father. It ended up costing his life. This case is just sad and makes me question humanity. What monster would do such a thing? If you made it this far, I'd like to thank you, the viewer, for taking the time out of your day to watch me. Since you made it this far, you might as well like and subscribe. I'll be back with another video next week.